The story of the album starts many years ago when I was 9 years old. Yes, 9 years old. When I was 9, I asked my parents for 2 turntables and a mixer for my birthday. And when I turned 10, I received the greatest gift of my life. I was a hip-hop kid, and at that age, we thought, me and my friends, that to fully embrace hip-hop, you had to hate everything else. And so we did. But I looked up to Kool Herc, Africa Bambaataa, Grandmaster Flash, the founders of hip-hop. And I thought in order to be like my heroes, I needed to play like my heroes. So I started to look into what kind of music they played when they started. And what I quickly realized was that all my heroes weren't really playing hip-hop when they started because there was no hip-hop when they started. So what were they playing? They were playing funk, soul, disco, rock and roll, reggae, Latin music, everything under the sun. And they were bringing it all together to create a new sound and a new culture called hip-hop. And that completely fascinated me as a kid. I was never into sports, athletes, comics, or anything like that. So these guys were my superheroes. They were like my Spider-Man and my Superman. So they completely opened up my mind. And I became very insistent on, as a DJ, being completely undefined. And I made it my mission as a young kid to be the DJ that people would call on to play all music for all people all over the world. That was my motto, still is my motto today. Skipping a few years ahead, by the time I was 18 or so, I started to live that motto in many ways. And I started to travel the world, from America to Canada, to Europe, to Asia, to Africa, Australia, and play some of the hottest nightclubs and events of my time. I had the privilege at a very early age of having the opportunities to play for some people who I looked up to, who I admired. At around 18, I started to DJ every party for Puffy and for Jay-Z and Beyonce and Jennifer Lopez, to Russell Simmons, to Naomi Campbell, to Anna Wintour, to Oprah, to President Obama. I DJ'd President Obama's inaugurations, birthday at the White House. I was the first DJ to ever play at the White House, first DJ to ever play a Democratic National Convention, first DJ to ever play a presidential inauguration. And I tell you all these things because throughout my journey as a DJ, no matter what country I was in, whether I was playing for leaders of the hip-hop world, leaders of the fashion world, leaders of the free world, or just your average guy at a nightclub, whether I was playing hip-hop at a club in New York or house music at a club in Saint-Tropez, whether I was playing for young, old, black, white, rich, poor, or anyone in between, no matter what music the people in front of me came expecting to hear, I grew to believe that the soul music of the late 1970s and early 1980s was the greatest dance music of all time. No matter where I went in the world and who was in front of me, the classic records of this era not only worked, but they killed. And they put a spirit, an emotion, and an energy in the air like no other kind of music. I saw this music affecting people who lived that era. I saw it affecting people who came right after that era, like myself. And I saw it affecting young kids in their teens who didn't really have any personal connection to it whatsoever. But this music had something infectious about it that made everyone smile, made everyone move, and it made everyone celebrate. And it made everyone feel something special. So when young kids would say to me, "Cass, what do you play at a Jay-Z party?" and I would tell them, "I play this," they would always look at me and not fully understand. And this music became a huge part of my career. It's what I became really known for in many circles. It became what a lot of the people I mentioned really called on me to do. And it by no means was what I played every night, but it was what I wanted to play every night. It made me feel different, it made me move different, it excited me in a different way. And I always wished that there was something new that I could play that felt like this music within this set of music. I always wished that young people would have their own anthems of celebration, their own songs as spirited and emotional and explosive as these on the dance floor to connect to in personal ways, but they would have songs of their own to define their own night out with, from artists who they wanted to hear, who they were able to connect to. So 4 years ago, I set out on a mission to bring the most universal dance music of all time back to the airwaves, back to nightlife, back to the dance floor. So the first step in this process was I sat on my computer and I made a playlist in iTunes of my favorite 25 songs from this era. And I put them in chronological order, and they all fell between the years of 1978 and 1982. Some of the artists on that list were Michael Jackson, Earth, Wind & Fire, Kool and the Gang, Chic, Shaka Khan and Rufus, Diana Ross, Shalimar, Brothers Johnson, Luther Vandross, Rick James, Tina Marie. I could go on and on and on listing those greats. And I said, how do I get my songs to sound and feel like these songs? So the second step was I made a list of every musician who played on every one of the songs. The drummer, the guitar player, the bass player, the horn player, so on and so forth. I made 25 lists. And after I made 25 lists, what I saw was the same names repeating over and over and over and over. Similar to if you made a list today of the top 25 songs on the radio, we would definitely see the same names behind all those records. The writers, the producers. So it became very clear that the producers and the recording artists of the greatest records of this era were hiring the same session musicians. And these guys were the architects of the sound. These guys were the men behind the music. So I said, in order to achieve my mission, I need to go to the source. So over the past 4 years, I reunited 22 of the most legendary musicians of the late 1970s and early 1980s for the first time in over 30 years in one room to recreate their definitive sound with no samples, no covers, no interpolations, no machines. I normally don't try to do this, but let me see if I can list all 22. Verdine White of Earth, Wind & Fire, Philip Bailey of Earth, Wind & Fire, someone needs to count. Larry Dunn of Earth, Wind & Fire, Nia Rogers of Chic, John J.R. Robinson of Rufus, Bobby Watson of Rufus, Robert Kool Bell of Kool and the Gang, Khalees Bell of Kool and the Gang, George Brown of Kool and the Gang, Nia Rogers of Chic, Ray Parker Jr., Freddie Washington, Ollie Brown, Marcus Miller and Ndugu Chancellor, Patrice Rushen, Jerry Hay, Will Lee, Chris Parker, Ira Siegel. How many?
20.
You'll let me off on the other two. So the most legendary, renowned musicians of this era. If you were on my list and you were living on Earth, you played on my album. I filmed every minute of this process for 4 years, knowing from the very first session that I was doing something that would be groundbreaking. Then I said to myself, I need new voices to bring this music to a new generation of people. Voices that will connect to young people, voices that represent my generation, and voices that represent all genres of music. From R&B to pop to electronic to rock and roll, all coming together under one sound, uniting everyone under one sound. So I put together a list of the most diverse, eclectic, superstar recording artists from my generation to write and record original songs to this music. 13 to be exact. Ready? John Legend, Estelle, Kelly Rowland, Melanie Fiona, Mary J. Blige, Passion Pit, Chromeo, Neo, CeeLo, Robin Thicke, Jessie J, R. Kelly, and Usher. It was the greatest experience in my life. Never in my wildest imagination could I have dreamt the experiences that I had over the past 4 years. Being in the studio with such brilliant, iconic musicians who have made some of the most timeless, incredible dance songs of our lives. And being able to produce them, to share with them my vision, and them being so humble as to look to me to be directed in the studio. It was a learning experience for us all and the greatest experience of my life. And on top of that, being able to write and record songs with some of the most amazing recording artists of my time and allowing them the chance to bring back to life their favorite music of all time as well. So as I mentioned, I filmed every minute of this process for 4 years, and before I play some music, I'd like to show you a little video, which is the making of my single, Calling All Hearts, featuring Robin Thicke and Jessie J.